Welcome to the Love the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former NFL scout Brian Broaddus, a Super Bowl winner. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. You'll hear him on those calls very soon, here in like a week or so. Brian, how you doing? How's California? And what were you? I said something that made you laugh when I said we were ready to go, and I was like, "What was that?" And then you just smirked. And then Peyton launched. What did I say? What was my comedy?
It was kind of like, "Yeah, I'm ready when you guys are," and I was just sitting here patiently waiting for you to be ready.
I was ready the whole time. I was just I was telling you what we were doing coming up.
I'm just like sitting here like, but no, Bobby. It's nice to be here in California. Really good practice yesterday, as far as from a standpoint of how competitive it was. And I know on a couple different platforms, I want to give a shout out if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
To Mike McCarthy. I don't give Mike McCarthy very much credit at times, but I want to give him some credit for something. I feel like that he has tried to make these practices more physical. I think he's tried to make his team more physical.
Yeah.
I think he's tried to install a little bit more toughness to his team. He's gone to especially with the padded practices. He went along yesterday. He went probably about 30 minutes longer than he probably should have yesterday. He went with a young guy period at the end of practice, and that got a little hairy because those guys had already been practicing for a couple hours, and then you throw the young guys out there. But it's good that they get the opportunity and get the work. But I want to give Coach a little credit for that. I know I'm trying to be as fair as possible because I've talked to him about being lazy and not caring about things. But no, his approach with this training camp, we've seen it with the practices. He immediately jumps into some one-on-ones. He immediately jumps into some 9-on-7s. He does a lot of goal line. He does a lot of competitive stuff too, where he keeps score for both sides. Yesterday he was keeping scores. He got into this period that he called team red zone. It was either lockout or breakout, and it turned into giving the defense points for stops. And so I was pleased. I mean, from a scouting perspective, to watch that practice yesterday, and we got to do it for DallasCowboys.com and Channel 21 in Dallas. I have to say I came away with that surprised in a good way, and hopefully they didn't have any injuries. I didn't see anything that looked concerning or anything like that. So they take today off as we speak on the Sunday and get back at it on a Monday.
One of the things we've heard, if you're to ask guys around the league who have played for Mike McCarthy and you say, what is it you like about him as a coach? Like what are the pros and cons of Mike McCarthy as a head coach? Then one of the consistent pros you hear from guys is like, he takes care of our bodies.
He does. Trainers will tell you that too.
Yeah, like he makes sure we're not overworking, we're not doing things. Not to say that what you're describing is a change in that, or now he's being reckless. He's not. But Do you think that he's maybe trying to tap into something more that he hasn't in the past because of, hey, this is make or break, my job's on the line?
I don't know if it's make or break. I just think he knows he has to do things with a little bit different approach. I think Mike McCarthy does not want to embarrass anybody. And I think that's why you don't always see the one-on-one stuff. Remember Jason Garrett when we were here, Bobby, he would have a period where he'd just call out two guys to go one-on-one with the whole team, and they'd film it and all that, the compete period and all that. It was
if you watched All or Nothing, it's the same thing you saw when Des Bryant and Jordan Lewis went against each other.
Yeah. So to me, that's kind of where, McCarthy, he don't think he was really interested in getting people hurt. You're absolutely right about the players and wanting to play for him, and the trainers and medical staff will tell you that he has a real concern and a real understanding of what he needs to do for his football team. But I've seen more of a sense of urgency to try and bring a bit of physicality to this football team. He's got to figure some things out at the defensive tackle spot. He's got to figure out a few things at offensive line. getting better there. He's got to get his tight end room blocking better at the point of attack, trying to do that. He's got Hunter Lipke he's trying to work as a fullback. He's got to see where he's at that spot. And he's got some rookies that are, he's got a rookie in Nealon that's trying to learn what he needs to do. Probably going to have to be a starter for you. So he's got a lot of questions that he has to answer. But I think the week of practice, I know you guys went home on Friday. I'm really glad, and I hope they can maintain it. I'm looking forward to the week of practice. I'm looking forward to the Ram work on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to the game on Sunday. So a lot happening this week for the Dallas Cowboys, but I want to be fair with Mike McCarthy. I like what he's doing with his football team right now.
You mentioned there that I don't know if it was a mention. It was more like a brag, maybe, that you got to stay for more practices than we did. We had to go home. You're dunking on us a little bit with your practice availability there, Brian. Friday and Saturday, obviously, we've got 2 more padded practices that we didn't get to see. So tell me, just recap for me out of those 2 padded practices. Anybody that, from what we had seen in camp already, did anybody step up and you feel like it started to click into place in those, or did anybody come back down to earth? We've heard a lot about Racy McMath and Tyron Billy Johns, for instance. Did they start to come back to earth any? Did guys start stepping up who we've been talking about? What did you see out there at those practices?
Yeah, they're still trying to hunt what's going on at defensive tackle. I think things with Mozzie were a little bit more positive the last couple of days than what we've seen before. They're still coaching him very hard. And I mean hard in a way of hey, okay, technique, hands, footwork. I know Mike Zimmer said what he said about him, but they're still working with him. Yep. And, there were a couple times where Mozzie has shown the ability to stack blockers. That's what he can do. Now get off blocks, get to the ball, those kinds of things. Jeff Sagina is coaching him really, really hard. I appreciate that. Not only is Sagina coaching him hard, he's coaching Rodgers hard. He's coaching all these defensive Golston, he's coaching all these guys hard. And so to me, I think that's something they absolutely need. I love what this linebacker room is. I love what they've done with this linebacker room. When you watch with Leofau and then yesterday with a little bit with Wooly Harvey playing some. I mean, there were some. They've got a group of guys. No Eric Kendricks. He's dealing with his injury, his back, and so. But Parsons, Overshone, Clark, Leofau, Wilson. The veteran Damian Wilson getting some shots. I like what they've got in this linebacker room. I think in the secondary, it's been super competitive. I'll tell you what, the Carson kid from Wake Forest, the rookie, can legitimately play.
Dude, they love him. They love him.
And they should. Kid's super competitive. He knows how to rip the ball out of guys' hands. He has a sense of timing. He got beat on some routes early in the week where it was just a vertical route he got run by. But if he can get his hands on you or stay with you or stay connected, he's going to knock the ball away. Jordan Lewis practiced particularly well yesterday. He had an opportunity in the nickel. He looks like, Mike Zimmer absolutely loves him. And so he's getting some really good work there, doing a great job in coverage. Eric Scott, I always describe Eric Scott as his sponsors are now in the nation's capitals. The guys that drafted him and wanted him are now with the Commanders. He's pushing the rock up the hill. But yesterday he keeps pushing the rock up the hill because he goes out there and he makes plays. He's got an awareness about him. Especially when they get down the tight red zone, when this field shrinks, his ability to battle receivers on the edge. These receivers, you start shouting out coaches. Give a shout out to Al Harris taking over that spot from Joe Witt. They're a well coached secondary, and that's
got the assistant head coach tag added to him this year too. He's taking on a lot of responsibility.
He's a damn good coach. And his players are playing at a very high level. Like I say, no digs. Bland's making plays. Heck, I mentioned Eric Scott's even making plays. Carson's making plays. We're still going to have to see what happens with McQuamu and then also with Nashawn Wright. a couple of veteran guys. How will that all play out? The safety group looks pretty good with what they're doing with the coverages with the line against the tight ends, especially in the tight red zone that we saw the other day. This defense might be all right, and it might be all right if they can figure out what's going on at the 1 and the 3, and I mean the defensive tackle spot, because they've got some guys in place, but they've got to figure out that one technique spot.
Have you gotten a chance to see working off to the side or anything else? Have you gotten eyes yet on Shaka Tony or Al-Qadim Muhammad out there?
Muhammad's a better player. Muhammad's a better fit. To me, Tony, maybe, Tony's a little bit of a shorter guy. He's an explosive guy. Muhammad has got some juice to him. When you watched him play the upfield, the first step quickness, where he struggles a little bit is when it's start, stop, and then restart. But he's got some length to him. Tony, a little bit shorter guy. Special teams guy, if you watched him at the Commanders, played a ton. But I watched him against Jordan Mailata and guys like that, and he had some decent passers. But if you had to handicap him right now, I would say that Muhammad just a little bit better in the two practices that I've seen.
Now, one of the things that I know is something he did a little bit of at times when he was at Penn State. I don't know how much he's done this in the NFL. Is it possible when you add two guys there, is that trying to fill out all of their edge rusher depth, or do you think there could be some plans where Tony could play some linebacker?
I think Tony could play some linebacker. Muhammad's more of a hand-down guy. I think that with Tony, he's had some of that ability where he's stood up and played. But like I said, they still need to be on the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
They still need to be on the hunt. I really do. Speaking of edges, I really do like what Nealon's done. I think Nealon, since we've been here, and I don't know how you felt about him, the practices you got to watch, he's a nice player.
He's good.
He's got strength to him. He's got the ability to take on blocks. Smart. Yeah. Plays both sides. So I keep saying this. I know folks are tired of me saying it. I was wrong about his ability to bend and his quickness, because I thought that I want to ask him this. Is there something that he did between the time he was drafted to where we are today? I probably need to go back and watch his Western Michigan tape and make sure that I saw him the right way, because obviously I didn't. I thought he was a very powerful guy. I thought he was probably going to have to play inside a little bit. I was worried about him being an edge rusher and, always rushing down the middle. And then, we see that sometimes with Golston, just down the middle.
Yeah.
Don't have any edge ability to you. But he's got some edge ability, and you could see that Micah Parsons was working with him on Friday when they were doing the one-on-one stuff. He was working with him about swatting his hands and, how hand placement, where to get the shoulder, how to sharpen the corner, and those types of things. So he looks like, to me, he might be a better, when you look at an overall, here they lose Sam Williams. The question about Sam Williams is how well will Sam Williams play the run? That was the big question. There was not really questions about Sam the pass rusher. There was questions about Sam playing the run. They might have got a more complete guy with this cat playing both run and pass.
What have you thought about he has taken some snaps on the interior. We talked to him on 105 through the Fan.
I haven't noticed it.
Have you not noticed it?
When
he was inside, obviously there's still coming along a little bit there, and we asked him about it. And then, by the way, for those of you who haven't caught our training camp interviews, we're going to be posting those as bonus episodes throughout the next week or two. So you'll be able to hear from Marshawn Nealand and hear some of what he had to say to us when we talked to him on 105 through the Fan. But he talked about defensive tackle as part of the plan for him this year, and that he's going to take some reps in there, and that he's still trying to come along there and figure some things out. But I like his ability to get upfield from the inside, and he's a smart player. There's a lot to like about him, and one that the Cowboys may have hit on there. You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, let's take a look at same sort of topics. We're talking about guys who maybe are ascending or descending here in terms of their roster position. I want to just run through some of these names that we feel like, hey, this is somebody who we didn't have on the roster when we were heading to camp. Now they're in contention, or somebody we thought was on the roster and maybe they're a little shaky now, or somebody who's on the bubble and we feel like we've played their way into either direction. First name I want to talk about, because I know when we talked about surprise cuts potentially, the one that I had thrown out about, man, if it doesn't click into place for him, he could be one of your surprise guys left off the 53, and that's Damone Clark. And I think Damone Clark has been really good this camp, and there's zero chance that he's a surprise cut at this point.
Yeah, he's got some buddies around him that are super smart and super instinctual and super with the ability to help him. Like, okay, it's offset I formation, ball's coming over here, be ready. And that's all Damone Clark needs, because all you have to do is say, watch the crack toss, and then Damone Clark is past everybody. Crack toss is happening now. He's along the line of scrimmage, or he's making a tackle for the loss. So it's no longer safety dudes playing next to him. It's legitimate linebackers that read very quickly and are really, really bright and smart when it comes to understanding formations and what people are trying to do to them.
Can I want to ask you a general coaching philosophy question, or how you would have viewed it from the front office perspective. When there is a guy like Damone Clark, who we say probably needs to be simplified for him a little bit.
Yeah.
Because his reads aren't always going to be great.
Right.
Do you feel like if you were in the front office and this is a guy that you drafted and you saw this situation play out, would you say the onus is more on, hey, coach, you need to simplify things for him, or player, you need to be in the classroom more? Who's got more of the responsibility to up that? Is it the player to get better at his recognition, things like that, or the coach to say, hey, he is what he is, you need to make it work for the ability that he has?
Yeah, there's a lot of programs that will ask the coaches to try and simplify things, but you're talking about a defensive coordinator that's always played with smart guys. He's always played with guys that have awareness and know their assignments, and that's something that he's prided himself on. And even if we remember, Malik Hooker was talking about, what do you know about Mike Zimmer? And he goes, hey, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then for 2 plays or so, he's going to pull you out of there. So yep. I think it's on the, there's players that just aren't going to pick it up, and then you got to figure out ways to work around that. But I think it's really on the player to do the best he can to try and learn as much as he can about the scheme and overcome and study. It's not always natural to a lot of these guys, but Damone Clark will put in the work and try and learn and pick up everything.
A guy we had on the bubble, I think one of the guys that was the few players who said, all right, they brought him in for a reason, but it's still, you're still looking at, one of the players on the back end there, and so they could be on the bubble. Willie Harvey, a guy I know who you just referenced there. Harvey was probably on the bubble when we got here. Would you say he's played his way on yet, or is he still a bubble guy for you?
I would say this about Willie Harvey. He is getting a lot of opportunity, with them being down Kendricks. He's getting a lot of work, and you could tell where he is going to make this team potentially is as a special teams player. He is going to be the guy that is on all the teams, all the running teams, punt coverage. He's going to be on the punt return. He's going to be on the kickoff return, kickoff team. He's going to be doing all this stuff. Whether Willie Harvey makes this football team because A, he's a really good special teams player, and B, in these preseason games, we look at the stat sheet and he ends up playing and he has like 8 to 10 tackles. That's what's going to be for him. But you could tell that he is a guy that gets it as a player. I was watching him yesterday, and he moves well. He closes ground. He's got a burst. He's tough. There's a lot of positive things. I think he's more of a make-it type guy now than he is a bubble player. we'll see how the special teams and stuff shake out for him in these 3 preseason games we're about to get.
Two guys that I think were, again, definitively off just because of numbers more than anything else, have these receivers that we've talked about, Tyron Billy Johnson and Racey McMath. Do you think they've played themselves into a bubble conversation?
Right now, Billy Johnson, just because he's had better days. McMath has shown up, and you got to like McMath because of his size. But he's found ways to get open. He's been secure catching the football. He's, as I mentioned, a big target. And some of the contested stuff, he's been able to haul some passes in. There's been times where the ball wasn't necessarily going his direction, and then he found a way to get open, and then the quarterback goes to the spot where he is. I like him. The thing with Billy Johnson, I think that Billy Johnson has turned a lot of heads just because of the consistency he's played with. I mean, you've seen with these wide receivers, as we know, Bobby, you can't have a bad day. You can't take a day off. I mean, this is why Ryan Flournoy right now is behind.
Yeah.
He's behind because, we should be talking about Ryan Flournoy and not Billy Johnson and not Racey McMath. We should be talking about Ryan Flournoy as the guy that, is pushing for that final spot.
Yeah, and I think that the added dimension with guys like Tyron Billy Johnson and Racey McMath, like you mentioned with Racey McMath, the size, but also, we know that one of the things they were looking for on offense was juice, and both those guys have shown some good bursts. Tyron Billy Johnson, that was one that we talked about leading into camp, was going to naturally have some good practices because that's somebody who's been around since 2018, bounced a lot of practice squads, knows his way around, a 9-on-7, has an idea of how to work around that sort of stuff, and is somebody who, has certain traits that are not common in the Cowboys receiver room. And so I think that that's an interesting play there. I'm curious about a guy here that we've talked about how thin things have been at defensive tackle. Has Denzel Daxon at all for you played himself into sort of conversation about the roster, or is that pretty much solidified for you for the tweener guys, Nealon and Golston, Carl Davis, veteran, Justin Rogers, rookie, Mozzie Smith? Is that more who we're looking at here, or is Daxon somebody you think could be in contention?
Yeah, I think that Daxon will have to play himself on the roster, and I think right now that hasn't happened. I think Rogers has shown up. I think Davis has shown up. Mozzie continues to work at his spot. But I think that Daxon was a little bit, he's an international guy too. So they get a roster exemption for him if he gets on the practice squad. And that's kind of where I think he's going right now.
Brian, when we look at you mentioned Justin Rogers there, running through the draft class here, Tyler Guyton, Marshawn Nealon, Cooper Beebe, Maris Leofau, Kalen Carson, Ryan Flournoy, who you just referenced there, has had issues in terms of with his health and being active and being available. He might be a stash guy. Nathan Thomas on the offensive line, Justin Rogers. You look at the other last year's draft class, Mozzie Smith, Schoonmaker, Overshown, Junior Fehoko, Awesome Richards, Eric Scott, Deuce Vaughn, Jalen Brooks. Here's my question to you, Brian. Is it possible that the last 2 draft classes all make the roster this year?
I think there's a little bit more questions about the class from 2 years ago as opposed to what this last class is. I'll tell you this, though. I think Awesome Richards had a really good day yesterday.
Good camp.
He got thrown into a situation where they were down. There was no Chuma Adoga at left tackle. There was no Guyton at left tackle yesterday because of his illness. So, he's had to get a lot more work. He's played some guard, but he and Nealon had some really good reps against each other. Micah Parsons, others were able to go against him. He held his own. I was kind of worried that it was going to be, but playing next to Tyler Smith really helps. I mean, he really helps with the way that he's, when he passes stunts or he's there to kind of help or, make sure that he can clean some things up. But to answer your question, I think we've seen more production from this last draft class than we have the previous draft class. And again, that's Schoonmaker not practicing, with the groin injury and stuff like that. So, it's unfortunate. They're calling it minor, but he's not practicing. Others are. And it's kind of been the story of his existence here with the Dallas Cowboys, and that's unfortunate. Mozzie, as I mentioned, continues to try and do the things that they're asking him to do. I like what this last draft class has done, even with Thomas. I like what his footwork has got to get. He's got to get a little quicker with his feet, a little quicker with his reaction. But he's a strong guy, and when they go 3-on-2, passing stunts, working twist games, he's able to kind of pass this guy and pick up guys, and he looks aware. He looks like he's not getting knocked back than anything that I've seen. But I do like what we've. I had a lot of questions about Nealon. I had questions about Leofau. They look like to me, and then with Guyton, kind of had Guyton where he was, but that second, third, fourth round. No, we don't have a 4, but second, 3. The 2 3s.
Yep.
I mean, that group's kind of come. I mean, BB continues, and this is where I feel like I missed on BB a little bit. I missed on the learning curve there. I thought the learning curve for Guyton would be steeper because of switching positions.
Same.
But BB's learning curve of completely playing either guard or tackle to playing center, I felt like that it would be a little bit like he could be plug and play. It's not plug and play right now. It's just
Are you seeing daily improvement?
Well,
are you seeing daily improvement at least?
Yeah, it's not because of the snaps. It's hard. It's hard to snap, step. I mean, I saw it yesterday, and Leofau can run like a scalded dog. But when you watched BB, he made it clean second level. If he's playing guard, there's the snap. He's off the ball. And now he's second level, and he's probably getting that block. The fact that he has to snap, step, then go, put him behind. And Leofau ran past him to get to the ball. And that's where the learning curve is right now. He's got to be able to pick up better the snap, the step, and then adjust to where he needs to go. He's smart, he's tough, all those things you want to say about an offensive lineman. The learning curve at center of him having to once again learn how to play the position is a little bit more daunting than I thought it would be for him.
Couple quick names. By the way, just going back, you mentioned Nathan Thomas, how you were impressed by him, and we've talked about sponsors.
He's a big guy. Yeah.
He's got a big sponsor in the building in Mike Solari, and we've seen Mike Solari has gotten a lot of the things that he wants. Look at the center position right now.
Look at the center, Hoffman.
Which I know you guys got to interview Hoffman the other day. We'll play that interview soon. What did you think of Hoffman when you got a chance to talk to him?
I tell you what, I like what, he is a guy that seems very humble. His existence in the NFL is he's very mindful of that, how his journey, and that he doesn't take it for granted. He's like, hey, here I am. I was cut. I was going nowhere. All of a sudden, I ended up with the Cowboys. It's the best thing that ever happened to him, he said. So he's getting the opportunity now. He's got an offensive line coach that absolutely loves him, and he's playing at a decent level. And so I just feeling like right now, if nothing happens to him, he's probably going to be your starting center when we get to the Cleveland game.
I want to ask you about 3 more players where they've positioned themselves throughout training camp. You mentioned Schoonmaker not being really active right now due to the hamstring. We talked last episode, John Stevens maybe has slid back a little bit in terms of
not as good as he was last year.
A guy who we talked about could be on the bubble. Has Princeton Fant gotten his way on, given the context in some of these practices we've seen from him?
The padded practices have helped Fant a lot.
He's tough.
And this tight end room has got to be better as point of attack blockers. They've got to be better. They just have to. They can't, they can't be a liability. They've got to be. And I don't know how good the Cowboys running game is really going to be, Bobby, to be honest with you. I mean, I have some of my doubts, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with. I kind of feel like that it's Zeke, it's Schoonmaker. It's not Schoonmaker. Excuse me, Hunter Lipke, and then everybody else is every man for himself kind of thing. We might be looking at the Dolphins. We might be looking at the Commanders. We might be looking for, Alex Loomis and those guys, Henry Schroka. Those guys might be looking at adding a running back, whether it's through trade or through claims.
Yep.
I think the Cowboys are clearly studying defensive tackle and running back. I think those are two positions they are clearly looking at other NFL teams this summer to see if there's any surplus there.
And then last question here for you. And I agree, by the way. I think Fant is somebody who has...
Keep an eye on him, for sure.
That's somebody who Dak has invested in, and that's somebody who, in the padded practices, has looked good blocking things up.
Yes, he sure has.
I was surprised. I didn't think with his size he'd be as effective as he is blocking, but I mean, he's tough. Yeah. He's physical. Last one here, and it's a two players. Basically, I'm curious if either one of them, I think we were kind of questioning, these were true bubble guys for us heading in this camp. Nashawn Wright, Israel Mukuamu. Do you feel like either one of them have improved their standing? Is it just a bad numbers game for them and it doesn't much matter? How do you look at those two?
I think they're in a little bit of some trouble just because, and I think maybe one of them will make it. I'd be interested to see if I had to bet. I would probably bet on Wright.
I think Wright's been better. Mukuamu gives them flexibility to play too
because he can play slot.
I think they both practiced well.
Yeah, it just seems like to me there's been times where there's been as you mentioned some good play, and then there's two or three plays where all of a sudden they're getting picked on, and they're not breaking on the ball and not I'm looking at this as a group. And I'm loving what I'm seeing with as a group, and I'm looking at Lewis, and I know Diggs is coming back. Bland has been really good. Josh Butler showed up a little bit yesterday with his situation. Eric Scott, I mentioned him. And I know he was drafted by a previous regime, but Carson, Scott, those are two young guys that are super competitive. And so does that put Wright out on the street, depending on the numbers that they keep? Do they go a little long at safety? I think they're probably going to go 4 safeties and probably 6 corners. So that would be my guess right now.
How many linebackers, really quickly, do you think they keep? 6? Because Zimmer sounds like he's going to be playing 3 linebackers more than Quinn did.
Yeah, a lot more. You could play Parsons. Parsons a linebacker and end.
So then you would go Kendricks, Overshown.
So skip Parsons then.
If you say that Parsons is a floating 6th linebacker,
okay,
then add 5.
Parsons, Overshown, Clark, Leufau, Kendricks, and now we're down to the final.
Harvey and Wilson. That's the question.
That Harvey and Wilson are the final questions. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag, where we turn things over to our dear, sweet listeners for their thoughts, their comments, their questions, talk a little bit about what they want to talk about. First question from @TheStarWeAre. Does Guyton have top 5 left tackle potential this season from what you've seen?
No.
Nope. He does have, look, I think that what we've seen here is he's got the traits to be a top left tackle in the NFL over the course of his career, but not this year.
Just don't, again, this is not an offensive tackle that was taken in, like, if you look at Penei Sewell or Wirfs or any of those guys that were taken. Those guys, to me, when you watch them play in college, those were elite tackles. This kid's a good tackle. Can he develop? Absolutely. Does he have really good athletic ability? Absolutely. Is he competitive? Absolutely. Maybe he develops, but right now you would be really happy if he went out there and didn't bust, like, the Giants seem to pick all these guys and these first round tackles, and they don't play worth a damn. You just want him to go out there and be. Remember what we thought about Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith having to play. Tyler Smith, outstanding guard, but he is him as a tackle. I think Tyler Smith is a good tackle. I think he's an elite guard.
Yeah.
But I would say that Guyton, just let him be good. Let him have 60 plays a game, and if he makes 2 mistakes, and hopefully none of the mistakes hurt your quarterback. But that's kind of where I'm hoping. I want a solid, dependable, much like what Tyler Smith did when he was in there playing left tackle for you for Tyron Smith.
All right, and next question here for you. I agree, though. By the way, I think Guyton has flashed like the skills and the traits that you see that you're like, yeah, he'll be a guy that
he's good.
As long as he's fostered the right way, he's going to be in Pro Bowl contention early in his career. I like this question from Starlin. Next one here. Do you think Mike Zimmer's defense can help Dak, considering the different looks they give him at practice compared to last year's defense?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It is a struggle. It's a struggle for Dak. It's a struggle and Dak's practiced really well. It's a struggle for Cooper Rush. It's a struggle for Trey Lance. Mike is not going to. The one thing that Mike McCarthy said was that they've gone into this install, and they don't script plays and things like that. So it's call play, match that kind of way. Whatever personnel group is, call plays and see if you can move the ball. And Mike McCarthy has said, man, it has been a struggle to move the ball on these guys. Or to call plays that tend to take advantage. They got him yesterday on a couple of cross on a 4th down and long and blitz right up the middle. They picked it up, the offense, and they got the ball. They got the ball on the move to Cropper, I believe it was, and it ended up being a huge play. But it'll help Dak because Mike Zimmer is really big in disguising things. And what's the one thing we always say about Dak Prescott? When he throws an interception, he didn't see it.
Yep.
He didn't see it. So if you're having to read and then react to that, it's going to make you a better quarterback.
Specifically, what's the most unique look you've seen in some of these team periods from Mike Zimmer? I mean, I know sometimes we've seen a lot of Parsons lined up on the same side as DeMarcus Lawrence. We've seen instances where Parsons is standing up, Lawrence has his hand in the ground, and then at the snap of the ball, it's Parsons rushing and Lawrence dropping back. We've seen showing double A gap blitz and then have both those guys bail out and drop into coverage. Or there've been a whole bunch of different looks. Has there been anything that you saw at practice where you're like, ooh, that's really unique, or wow, I don't think I've seen that in the last couple of years?
I think the word you use is exotic, and no. I think exotics come with game plans when you start to see those are things that you can work on. But I think that the one thing that he did yesterday to try and combat, and he got some stops down in the red zone, is he gave him his double A gap look. And then it was rush and drop. And then one time Leofau got home, and I think it was because that Tyler Smith and Awesome Richards got caught going one way. They kind of went wide, and maybe the center, Hoffman, didn't come with him. I don't know whose responsibility it was, but Leofau came just straight A-gap blitz from Dak's left side. It would have been a sack is what it was. So he's trying to kind of give him – the thing you'll notice with the defense is in the secondary, they'll line up in one spot, and then at the snap of the ball, they'll completely rotate into another look.
Yeah.
And that's so they're giving you one look and they're not tipping it. Sometimes you get these guys that they'll walk up and then they'll think, okay, they're blitzing here, but they're doing a really good job. They Bell had a rush the other day where he didn't tip it, got home. Wilson had a rush where he got home, didn't tip it. So they're doing a good job of playing and holding their ground, and then when the snap, and then taking off and doing what they need to do.
A lot of questions about Kevontae Turpin. We'll use this one from CD's Real Burner, is what he claims to be. He says, does Turpin look like he's pushing for wide receiver 3 right now?
He looks like he's a guy that clearly, when you start to talk about the receivers and who's had good camps, he might be your best running back when they hand him the ball. He's
I want to ask you a quick question on that, because I asked Nick Eatman this the other day. Turpin at running back, is that a sign of creativity or desperation to you?
Might be a little desperation. It might be a little bit of, but they're trying to find ways to get him the ball. And to me, whether it's the screens, the swings, the hand it to him, the jet sweeps, clearly he puts stress on the defense when he has the ball in his hands. He has a feel for how to navigate in space and make people miss. So I could see creativity, but I could also see some desperation if they don't have any type of an established running game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it feels more like just something where it's like, it could be creativity where it's like, oh, we can get unique with this, but it also feels like there's like, we got to get some juice back there. Throw Turpin back there, see if he can do something. Next question here from Billy Strickland. And again, we got a lot of questions again this week. I've been hands off. We're 41 minutes into this, Brian. I've not said a single word about Trey Lance to this point, but we did get a lot of questions again. Billy Strickland says, do you think Jerry believes he can let Dak go and survive a few years with Trey Lance with the intention of building through the draft and being good again in a few years?
Will McClay told us in an interview we had with him the other day. Gavin Dawson of 105.3 The Fan, G-Bag Nation, asked a question about rebuilding. Will said we don't rebuild. We just don't rebuild. He was adamant about that. Fine, that's okay. I could definitely see a situation, and let me ask you this, Bobby, and humor me with your response if you want. Could you see them taking the $60 million that they're going to pay Dak and splitting it between Lamb and Micah Parsons?
I don't know.
I'm trying to.
No,
I know.
I
I don't have a great answer. I don't have a great answer why it's taken them.
I'll tell you this.
They have their reasonings. I don't know what the reason is. And here I am at camp, but I don't have a good answer for this.
I'll tell you this. I think 2 years from now, when we look at Dak, CD, or Micah, one of those guys is not here. I don't know which one it is, but one of them's not here.
Just have a feeling it's starting to be the quarterback.
Ian Rappaport had a report, or he was talking to Rich Eisen the other day, and he said he doesn't think that CD and the Cowboys are close. And he said, and I still think they're closer than Dak and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
If
you talk to like Todd Archer and guys like that, they're kind of like, what's the incentive for Dak to sign right now when maybe he could get even more if he were to wait the end of the season?
Joel Corey says he thinks there is a legitimate argument from Dak's side that the baseline salary should be 62.5. And Ian Rappaport, when it was suggested, Rich Eisen said, could Dak get 60 on the open market last year? Ian Rappaport said way more. So what is the incentive? If Dak feels like I could get close to 70,
there's no incentive for him. So they, then they need it. Something like that, Jerry. And I'm going to be. Jerry has his media party on Tuesday night. I'm sure we'll hear some stuff out of that because Steven will be there and Jerry will be there.
Will you wear a wire for us?
Man, I tell you what, there's things they tell you can't say or learn. But
I know.
I'll never forget that party. Clarence Hill got a drink served to him over the top of Jerry's head. Like Clarence reached over Jerry to get a drink while he was holding court with Jerry.
If I asked you to guess, if I didn't even tell you it was, if I just said, Brian, somebody on the beat had a drink served to them over Jerry's head, wouldn't you have guessed Clarence?
No question. No question.
It's the easiest one for sure.
Easiest one. But yeah, okay, you asked me a question in Trey Lance, and the thing about it is I could see Dak walking. I could see them signing Trey Lance to maybe a 2-year deal. And I don't know if this draft class is particularly good at quarterback, but I know in 2025 I'm hearing it's a lot better.
Yep.
So I could see them trying to reset that is what I could do.
A lot of different questions. That sounds like a Chill Boys ballsy take of the day if I've ever heard one, Brian. Go to chillboys.com, promo code STAR. 15% off your order. Thanks again to Chill Boys. Love them. They've supported us a great deal. I know you guys have turned that back and supported them in return.
Really appreciate. Thank you.
We're all appreciative of it.
No, and thank you to the fans that listen to it. And I feel really honored and blessed. I'm on so many platforms now, so if you listen to all of them, thank you very much. But thank you so much for listening to this one especially. This one means a lot to Bobby and I, and it means a lot to the station. And so thank you guys for hanging out with us. We really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we're getting close to regular season. Y'all know what that means. 3 episodes a week. So it's going to ratchet up even more. And you've got a bunch of content coming this week. In fact, right after we get done with this one, as I'm informing Peyton right now, I'm going to record a bunch of quick intros and outros so that we can bring all of the interviews that we've done here in Oxnard to you guys, all the different interviews we had with, like, Brian referencing there, Will McClay, Stephen Jones, not Dak. And then we've got Cooper Beebe and Marshawn Nealand and Tyler Smith, Zach Martin, just loads and loads of interviews. Can't wait to bring them to you guys. And we'll bring another episode to you again this week, another full episode, as Brian is going to be live from training camp, reporting to us from Oxnard, California, giving us all the details from the Jerry party, how good the sushi was, how much the Don Julio was flowing, all of that. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.